The effects of lack of emotional permanence. Emotional permanence allows you to enjoy your relationships and trust their strength. When it does not succeed, difficulties arise on the social level in connection with inappropriate behavior. Consequently, one must try to find balance in an environment that one feels is deeply unstable. You need to rely on the stability of your relationships. You need to know that the people who love you will continue to love you even if they are not around, or if you disagree. It is known as emotional permanence. If you are deficient in this regard, your quality of life and mental well-being will suffer. Lack of emotional permanence makes you feel insecure, like you're walking a tightrope. It creates strong feelings of anxiety and encourages you to act in a way that goes against your interests. If you are experiencing this problem, the root of it probably lies in your past. The good news, however, is that you can start working on it right away and boost your confidence. Emotional permanence. The idea of emotional permanence states that emotions continue to exist even when they cannot be observed. As you will see later, this applies to both your own and other people's feelings. For this reason, lack of emotional permanence creates mistrust in relationships and significant difficulties with emotional regulation. Emotional permanence is a concept related to object permanence, a developmental milestone that we reach around the age of 2. It refers to our ability to understand that the existence of objects and people extends beyond our perception. In other words, people do not cease to exist simply because we can no longer see them. Regarding emotional permanence, we learn as we grow up that emotions also have a continuity and that out of sight does not mean out of our lives. But to achieve this understanding, we need caregivers who give us unconditional affection, who are predictable and who allow us to develop inner security and permanence. When this does not happen, or if there are negative experiences, and later unstable bonds, e.g. with romantic partners, the sense of continuity regarding ourselves and our relationships is not developed or is compromised. A number of difficulties thus arise. Signs of lack of emotional permanence. There are some signs that can help you identify if you have problems with your emotional permanence. Here are the most important ones. Problems regulating your emotions. If you lack emotional permanence, you have difficulty regulating your emotions. You tend to get emotionally upset easily and have a hard time dealing with conflict. In fact, you tend to interpret any disagreement, discussion or misunderstanding as a disaster. This causes you great discomfort. You also have difficulty remembering what any emotion other than the one you are feeling right now feels like. If you e.g. feeling sad, depressed or anxious, you can't remember a time when you felt happy and calm. That being said, however, you can remember that you have previously experienced these feelings on a cognitive level. And you can describe them. But it's like you're describing someone else's experience. The only thing that exists for you is what you are experiencing now. You may also have difficulty understanding that two emotions can exist at the same time. You are e.g. not realizing that it is possible to be angry or upset with someone and still love them. Difficulties in your interpersonal relationships. These are the kinds of relationships where the consequences are most obvious. If you lack emotional permanence, you actually live with a strong fear of abandonment in your emotional relationships. You are unable to enjoy relationships because you do not trust them to be stable and constant. Therefore, you feel permanently insecure. This often leads you to feel jealous. You need constant reassurance that your relationships are okay and that you are still loved. The lack of emotional permanence is also an obstacle for you to trust others, which in turn arouses an intenser rejection of ambiguity. This means that you can only maintain and create relationships that are truly well defined. Also, Having doubts about the nature of your relationships makes you feel really uncomfortable. Psychological disorder. All of the above causes you great psychological suffering as you feel unloved much of the time. You are often sad or anxious and suffer from low self-esteem. You may even be more vulnerable to developing borderline personality disorder because of your insecure attachment and construction of emotional permanence. Interventions for lack of emotional permanence. Fortunately, it is possible for you to build a sense of trust and work with the idea of commitment and abandonment to improve your well-being. First, identify the consequences of your lack of emotional permanence. Then, in order to change your beliefs and interpretations, you can begin to use strategies for interpersonal effectiveness, thereby strengthening the pillars that support your self-concept. Some helpful guidelines include keeping an emotional diary to check how your mood swings vary, sharing your difficulties with loved ones and talking openly about them. Above all, you should get help from a qualified professional. In conclusion, identifying the vulnerability associated with your emotional instability will help you better manage your emotions.